Well, there's a balance here. It's small relative to the incomes of everybody else, but for them it's not that small. And there's a balance in the sense that you really do want to help them in the short run so that they can consume more food, they can diversify their diets, they can buy a little clothing, so that the money has to be sufficient for them to do that. But at the same time, you don't want to induce long-term welfare dependency. Because if it's a bit too much, so to speak, then there's a risk that households will just sit back and they wait for the check every month. The key concept of CCTs is a transitory investment in the human capital of these households. The last thing that they should do is to induce welfare dependency in which they just sit back and wait for the check to come once a month. If CCTs are running in 20 years from today, they failed. Part of the design of the program should clearly take this into account, not assume naively that the government will behave benignly, but actually do put in safeguards in the design of the program to try to minimize the sort of electoral abuse. It will probably be impossible to eliminate it. These temptations will always be there, but it really depends not only on the government, but on the polity, the legislative, the press, the academia, the broad opinion of the country to consider this. The country is making an investment in 20–25% of the population so that eventually these people can contribute to national development. Should we allow a few politicians to ruin that investment because they want to take their picture in the short run and gain the next election? If this conceptualization is not associated with the running of the program, then the kinds of precautions that you will need to avoid abuse will not be there. If this is seen as a technical program run out of one ministry and nobody else really pays attention, willy-nilly it will be distorted. It needs the attention of the polity in the broad sense of the political participants in the country's lives to, again, understand that everybody is paying taxes so that these programs can be paid for and that you don't want them to be manipulated. You need some general agreement within the government of what you're going to mean by households in poverty or households in extreme poverty. Now, there's no scientific way of deciding this exactly. This is, at the end of the day, a social consensus, a political consensus. Once you've reached that, then you need some way of measuring that. And then once you've reached that, it's fairly important that this be applied with some rigor so that there's no manipulation and it doesn't lend itself by being abused by the bureaucrats who are running the program. There will always be controversy whether a particular household is or is not poor, but in 90% of the cases, you will probably be getting the people that are in poverty and you'll probably be reaching the people that you need them. If 10% of the cases, people that don't need it get it, it doesn't really matter.